Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. First of all, thank you for the invitation. It's very nice to come to Qatar and to see the progress you're making towards being a world leader in broadband. Who saw Guy Kawasaki yesterday? Okay. His lesson was 10 slides, 20 minutes, 30-point font. This is going to be 10 slides, 10 minutes, 15-point font, 15, 12. It's going to be a little bit more detail than he's provided, but I hope it's going to be somewhere near as interesting. I'm going to talk about a few different bits of learning. We're a consulting company, but we have our own operator in Sweden. Now, Sweden is the most advanced nation in terms of open access networks. In parts of our network, and we have 120,000 subscribers, in parts of our network, we have a supermarket where there are 12 different service providers operating over our network and delivering to our customers seamlessly. You plug a laptop into the wall, up it comes. Which service would you like to connect to? Instantly. It's a key about software. But it's a very efficient organization. We have 2,500 subscribers per employee, compared to 450, say, for a Telecom Egypt. And that's through kind of doing it right. And it's ranked number 4 in the world by point topic for service value. So there's some lessons we've learned from that open access is complex, but you can do it right. We've also been working on the world's fastest ubiquitous network. Ubiquitous is this strange word. It just means every business, every home can get 1 gigabit per second. And I'll talk about some of the challenges of that in some of the slides to come within 10 minutes. We've also done essentially what is a national broadband network, bottom up, from the business case, the strategy, from the even through to the implementation, project management, designing that particular network. So again, we know how complex the challenge that Qatar is facing, because anybody can do something with infinite money. But a challenge for Qatar is to use the money wisely on this network, because the remaining money can be used to support other initiatives. It can put laptops into homes, it can support e-health, e-learning, and these other things, which will help raise Qatar to be a leading nation, not just in the Gulf, but across the world. So, this stuff doesn't happen in isolation. I'm reminded when I read project management books about it's perfect, you have infinite resources and they're all really clever and they're all really motivated and everything will be fine. Life isn't like that. And here, we're looking at, well, we've already got some ADSL, we've got some VDSL, we've got some legacy networks, we've got telex. We've got to try to somehow move this on. Even when you get to the stage of having a simple deployment. And this is something that my friend Ivan will talk more about. Even in this simple type of deployment, how do I convert somebody across from a copper connection? When do I turn their connection off? Do I allow them to choose, which is kind of inefficient? Or do I tell them, I'm going to come to your house tomorrow and I'm going to turn your phone off and turn your broadband off? What do you think about that? Some people aren't very happy about that. And I want to get access to their home. But if they're not happy about it, why are they going to let me in? I don't have the right to go in. So managing these transitions is very, very difficult. Beyond the theory, the real practice of saying, how do we go from an existing network to the future? One of the other things, you can't do fiber to the home everywhere, normally. UAE and Qatar are showing the way about the clear vision of the government, the clear leadership in saying, we will do this. But in most parts of the rest of the world, it's very, very difficult. In the middle of Athens, I can go down just less than 2 meters of street on average to pass a home, because it's very dense and there are many buildings with multiple dwellings. If I come to the Gulf, it's 15, 16, 17 meters of street to dig for every home passed. Now, as you go from the left-hand side, saying Stockholm, very dense, the cost is very low. But as you go further out to these smaller villages, these smaller towns, it becomes higher and higher and higher, and becomes harder and harder to actually build a complete network. The figures get very scary. So you have to choose very wisely where you go. You also have to choose wisely about whether you have a battery supply for your PC. Help! See if we can attract some attention. I figure this will last to the end of my presentation, so I don't really care, but by the time it gets to Ivan, his presentation is going to die.
Should be connected.
Plugged in there. Yeah. At this stage, normally I say, is there an engineer in the room? And everybody goes, yes! And you get rushed to the stage. This is fairly typical, this slide here. We're talking about GPON versus point-to-point and the cost differences. And we've seen if there's significant duct reuse, the cost difference can be as low as 5%, because fiber is quite cheap. If there aren't those ducts in place, they can have a more considerable impact. And on one project, we saw 21% difference. But the thing here is this is the simple stuff. Being clever is saying, actually, in the future, we will need point-to-point. But for the moment, we want to save some money. So you do a GPON network with enough fiber already in the ground when you pull it, that as individual customers say, we want point-to-point, you can re-splice their connection one by one, because the fiber's already there. But it's about balancing the CapEx and OpEx together in that migration from GPON to point-to-point. Yeah, I can save money now and just do GPON, but sometime in the future I'm going to have to spend a lot more money. I could put point-to-point fiber everywhere. Now, it's very expensive. If I'm migrating the whole network, I need to do that. But if I'm not, if I'm turning customers on individually, area by area, the mathematics, the finances, the practical application, the real-world stuff changes very significantly. I don't expect you to understand this slide. To be fair, I did this slide, and I don't understand this slide. But it's just showing that in the world of fiber, the offers that people make are not the same. Upstream, downstream, maybe symmetric, or maybe it's just 10%, maybe it's 20%. The prices are different, the cap may be different. The way that those products are offered is different. Don't worry about that complicated line. Worry about the fact underneath. You can get 1 gigabit per second in Hong Kong for $26 a month, or you can go to Portugal and you can get 30 megabits per second for $60. Why? How does that impact take-up? In Portugal, there were 1.4 million homes passed with fiber about a year ago, and there were only 70,000 subscribers. Try and find a business model where you can pass 1.4 million homes, only serve 70,000 subscribers, and make any money. And if you can do that, you should be standing here, because it's impossible. This stuff is a challenge. So I've rolled out my network, and I'm trying to attract customers, and I'm saying, look, fiber is fantastic, fiber is faster, fiber is better. But how much will people actually pay for that increase? This is a slide done by Ofcom. Now just have a look at that slide. For £20 more, about 37% of people would pay that much. So imagining that people will pay a huge premium for fiber, again, is a fail. This is about trying to do a very efficient, very effective network, getting the business model right, getting high levels of penetration at reasonable prices. And when you look at any network, you need to consider this. You need to do these studies and actually work out what people will pay. Now, I said before about it's complicated, the way that these different technologies work together. This is a set of different scenarios, actually saying, well, we're going to have this much fiber to the cabinet, this much fiber to the premise, this much on HSPA, this much on LTE. And subtle differences change the IRR figure. I've never nearly died giving one of these presentations before. The IRR figure, it changes. You're going on there from 10% down to -3%, only through subtle changes of the business model, subtle changes of how much money you can make, subtle changes about the decisions that you can make. Subtle decisions about where you stand on the stage. It's just like fiber. Some places are safe, some places don't work. So let's look at this a different way. The red line, top right-hand side, is the cash flow from a business in fiber. All the other things can be changed. Look at, as we change a few things on here, look at that line, how much worse it gets. If it gets that I have to dig more in the streets, that cumulative cash flow line is going down and down and down. That means I'm never going to see my money back. If I increase the cost per meter, that cumulative cash flow line is going down and down and down. I would go and point at one of the dials, but that's dangerous. It says minus 13.5. That project is no longer financially viable. It is very difficult. So, to summarize, what's going on in Qatar is fantastic. We've done all these networks ourselves. We completely support this. We understand how it works. We wish Qatar the best of success with this. I thank you very much for the invitation, and I wish you continued success during the rest of the conference. And one piece of advice, stay away from the back of the stage. Okay, thank you.